So Chael Banks, I've been at Okta for about 8 or 9 months now. Joined the company because it's a fantastic opportunity, love the technology and certainly the space, and I've learned a ton since I've been here. Format of this will be that I'm looking for questions from you all to these guys up here. We'll let them introduce themselves in a second. I've got a few questions as well in here if we need a little bit of warming up, but feel free to raise your hand and I'll see if I can see and pick you out of the crowd. You want to start?
Sure. That's why Dave asked me to sit here. Okay, so yeah, I'm Krish Venkatraman. I'm a senior cloud architect with Okta. I've been with the company this is my 6th year in the company. And I've started in 2013, and it was so great to see the product. And also, I've always been in professional services. So it's really great to be here and great to talk to you guys.
Hi, I'm Dave Fend. I am a principal architect with Okta. I think this week or next I hit my 3rd year anniversary with Okta. It's been a great time being here. I've been in the industry about 18 years. I work remotely out of the Detroit, Michigan area, so I serve kind of the central customers for Okta.
Hey. I'm Jyotsna Raghunathan, Senior Technical Consultant with Professional Services here at Okta. So I've been with Okta close to 3 years now, coming up on my 3rd year anniversary soon. It's been a crazy ride so far. The kind of growth that we've seen, the kind of use cases that we tackle. I mean, in every implementation that we go to, there's something unique. So it's constant learning even for us. And yeah, we begin to see patterns across, the hundreds of implementations that we do, and this is a great opportunity to share, what we've observed and what we can do better. So great to be here. Thanks.
Hey guys, my name is Ahuja. I'm a senior architect with the PS team. Been with the company for about just 3 years now, and prior to that I was a customer for 2 years, so really kind of seen a lot of the situations that are challenges you see as customers, and I've kind of tackled them as a customer before joining here. I do both types of use cases, B2C, B2E, so happy to address any questions you have, any challenges you're looking at, anything you have in mind based on kind of what you saw in the keynote. Happy to address any questions. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, guys. And before I forget, thank you all. I mean, the common theme, aside from titles with these guys, just fantastic attitude, and they're clearly the go-to folks. I'm sure some of you are customers out there that have had some experience with these guys. So why don't we open it up? Again, I have some questions if we want to get started, but I'll look out to you guys because it's not about the questions I put together. It's more about what questions you have. So anybody out there have got questions? Fire away.
Okay, so recently my company merged with another company.
Oh. Sorry, I should have thought about that one.
Okay, so recently my company merged with another company. We're both Okta customers, and we had a challenge around trying to merge our 2 Okta tenants. And my company's merging into theirs, but we haven't been able to get much help. We've tried contacting you guys many times. And basically what we're looking for is we have about 50 different apps on our side that we're trying to move over with the users into the other environment. So I don't know if things are moving forward in that regard or if there's some new suggestions there.
Sure. I mean, well, first suggestion is see me afterwards, and we'll make sure that we get back to you and move things forward. Somebody want to take a whack at
Sure, yes.
some opinions?
So let me summarize the question. So you got 2 customers, you acquired a company, and then you both are Okta customers, and basically you're trying to access applications across tenants. Is my understanding correct? Right. We can access each other's applications. We can share to each other, but we still have 2 separate Okta tenancies. We're just trying to shut down one and have everybody from there merged into the other one. Sure. See, this is where one other thing Okta is so great because I've seen a lot of customer who come with acquisition with the mergers and acquisition. It's one of the things that Okta offers is we are not we don't need any for example Active Directory. Everybody has Active Directory. So when you buy a company, generally you don't need to actually go and create a trust or something. Oftentimes people go and, oh, I'm buying a company now, I need to build a trust between this Active Directory and Active Directory and all this stuff. But generally in Okta, you don't need to really do that. All you got to do is just hook up an agent there, import users into Okta. Pretty much you can use just one Okta instance, right? That's where like that's where you get things easily. And also oftentimes we also see generally like when they come acquisition, in your case it's Okta, good, but in some cases it may be a ping, it could be like ADFS, it could be much different stuff. So we always like, one of the things I've seen in the pattern is like, it's not going to be like migration overnight, but at least like we can get the users into Okta first, so which is like pretty simple. And then what we want to do is just make sure that we put a plan together to migrate these apps into one tenant. That's where like I would see like, based on like whether it's a big bang or approach, or it could be like, it really depends upon like what kind of approach you want to take, right? At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you provide access in one single view, right? I want to go to one Okta instance. I want to have access to all these apps. So that's definitely like, when you say like approach, this is what I would take. I would probably like first integrate the Active Directory into Okta and then bring in the users and then basically like set up all these things in one Okta instance so that like, whenever they go with something, they always go to this Okta instance. That becomes a habit every day. And then you probably start migrating the apps and probably create that federation trust so that like they can go into one Okta instance and then even they can access the other apps through this. So until you migrate over all the apps, right? It's definitely like a phased approach. Yep.
And is that your desired end state is to have a single tenant, or do you want to keep them separate?
Yes, we want to have one tenant.
Okay, got it. Then that would be a good idea. Otherwise, as Chris mentioned, the only kind of other approach there would be to do a federation between the two tenants. So as they're migrating from one to the other, you have like a seamless experience with the users. You can have them coming into one and then access apps on the other tenant without having to sign on again.
So,
Sorry.
sorry.
So
So I wanted to add,
She went.
so this is from the Okta, merging tenants perspective. But think about the apps that the employee population from the two organizations are accessing. So you might have two instances of Salesforce, right, with unique usernames for each instance. So while you're thinking about merging into one Okta tenant, you should also think about consolidating at your service providers, your user base, right? So if I'm from company A and company B, most likely my unique username in Salesforce is Joe at company A. And then, right, from the other company, they're XYZ at company B. So how are you going to merge that? How are you going to handle that? So that process needs to start early enough, because if you have, the more number of apps you have, the more communication, and you need to get all that in place. So that's another thing to be aware of. Thanks.
Yeah, since you said like there is like two Okta instance, I just want to like, one thing to keep in mind is like you also always want to look up what is the licensing model. So basically on each Okta tenant, you might also have like a different licensing model. So you also need to make sure that, consider that before you're making a switch, like, whether you have all the features enough to even like, switch these users into one tenant.
Good, thanks you guys. Any other questions out there?
Yes, I had a question regarding how you would set up like a test Okta environment, dev, test, whatever you want to call it. We're starting our journey off with Okta. We haven't actually done a production instance. And I was just wondering, is it possible to have that AD sync agent, like multiple instances of it, pointing like from one production AD pointing to different Okta tenants?
Yeah, we can do that. We can.
Okay. Is there any
Such a simple
considerations from like a...
Do you want to just come outside? I'll just configure that for you.
Is that, I mean, what do customers generally do for that sort of like acceptance process?
Yeah, so usually like this is very common between preview and prod environments. You will have your preview environments, could be one or multiple, and you have your prod environment. Ideally, you should have like a test AD you can integrate with the preview environment, so you have a full sandbox environment. But we know that's not very common, especially if you have large organizations with hundreds of thousands of users. You'll only have one production. You might have test AD, but it won't be similar to what AD production is. So customers will opt in to actually integrate their prod AD with all the environments. Really from a design standpoint, all you're doing is deploying a separate set of agents for each Okta environment, but that's really all there is to it. Very, very common though, yeah.
But one thing to consider is always since you are hooking up your prod instance, you don't want to bring in all the users in your test environment. So obviously, you want to probably create a OU, separate OU or some things for testing purposes. Because oftentimes, when you're bringing, for example, do Workday as a master or anything like you were trying to do, so we don't want to overwrite something in the production AD Active Directory, right? So you need to make sure that, you're having a separate silo, something in the test, even in the prod AD instance. So that's pretty much, and also if you want to test the features of IWA and everything, because you are logging into your computer really with your prod Active Directory instance. So it's definitely you need to consider those things.
Thank you.
That's great. I think I saw a hand down there.
Earlier you mentioned service provider consolidation is something that we need to think about in merger situations. From your experience, what are some SaaS tools that do this very well, and what are some common pitfalls that don't work with an Okta instance?
So from what I understand, you want to know about how we've tackled this in the past.
Yes.
Where I've done it, it's been I always advise a phased approach, right? When you're doing mergers and acquisitions where you have, both your, both the companies that are merging are existing Okta tenants, we want to cause as less disruption as possible. So the first thing, as the other panelists suggested, would be we set up org-to-org federation, and then when we decide to bring over all the users from the two organizations into a common, into one, so we make one Okta tenant as the primary, we decide, okay, tenant A is going to be our final tenant, and we're going to slowly start merging everything into tenant A. So assume, one stage you've brought all users over to tenant A. So let's take you have two Salesforce applications, right? You have user@a.com and user.b.com. So what we've done is using Okta Universal Directory, we've done transformations where, temporarily, even though your username has changed, you've come to the A domain, we can still transform your username to be at b.com. So to that service provider, we keep that same unique username. And once we start consolidating at the service provider, at a certain cutoff, we remove that transformation. So it has to be staged. You cannot do it all at once, right? So that's been my experience.
Anyone want to add?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm curious about your acquisition of ScaleFT and the advanced server access tool, and you just announced, I think, at the show, Access Gateway. And I'm curious how professional services supports some of those advanced features, how you get trained. If I'm starting to work on something like that, do I want to ask for a particular person who knows what they're doing? And
Don't answer that. No, I'm kidding.
and what are any considerations about rolling out that technology?
We have announced the Advanced Server Access product. It is available today in general availability, and same as everybody else, PS is doing our own onboarding of our expertise with that, and we are ready to assist with that today for you. So the kind of the best thing to do would be to reach out to your engagement manager and kind of see how you can best engage with PS for that. Specific to the Access Gateway, that's still an up and coming product that I think is announced to be coming sometime this year. So it's probably not something that we can obviously help you go set up today until it's at least in beta mode.
Yeah, just want to add there, as these are brand new products, the training is still, not available yet. But as soon as it's available, But as we kind of build out these new product capabilities, PS is usually the first one to work with customers, as they are trying this out and as products are building it out. So once it is available, at least we have some team members who are ready and able to assist customers who are the first ones to go live with these features.
So one of the things I would suggest is, for everyone, I want you guys really to look at our beta programs. So whenever there's a beta program, it's really good time for you guys to go and, sign up for those beta, because we are providing a nice documentation, also very good a way how you can set up. It's not just documentation. We also provide some environments in some cases where you can just go and test those everything. So generally definitely you guys need to take a look at the beta program, and you want to talk to your customer success managers or engagement managers to say, hey, probably how can I guys sign up for this beta, right? So that's definitely one of the things for considering all these features before it comes to EA or GA.
Can I follow up? So, okay, I see in the article you're saying you're just announcing it, and later this year the access gateway will be GA, so it's just beta. Bummer. The advanced server access, I think maybe you guys have it beta to Linux environments right now. Is that true, or is that on Linux and RDP?
It's Linux and RDP.
Both supported in
Yes,
GA?
both are supported
Okay.
today. So ScaleFT already had existing customers, right, like Rackspace and others. We have, a lot of we have some beta customers who are onboarding, and it is live for a lot of the existing ScaleFT customers. Okta customers have started onboarding, so we do support both Linux and SSH. And it's, they are using it in production, so that's where we are with
Okay, so advanced server access for Linux and
Yes.
RDP is supported GA right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So when I go there, I'll be able to do that. But Access Gateway is still
No.
down the road, and beta programs are not even active right now, or they are?
For Access Gateway, I have to check on the beta program. I'm not aware at this
Can
point.
you guys talk about what the beta program means? If I sign up for the beta program, can I roll it out and you'll support us?
Yeah,
or-
so I think the way we work is if you have a CSM and you go to the beta site, there's some beta programs that you're interested in, you contact your CSM and they kind of facilitate that with product.
I tell you, we're using Duo right now. We'd like to just replace the whole thing. But they have the Duo Network Gateway, which is a reverse proxy tool that supports, not having to have VPN tools to get into applications, which is essentially what this Access Gateway tool is going to do. If you guys had that, we could go full-blown on there. But if you have a beta program for it, you're saying I could potentially sign up for that and start, if I get approved, we could start moving into that architecture.
Yeah, so the beta programs, there's a large number of them that are available online for you to go, try and self-enroll in. Otherwise, you can, as Joe mentioned, if you have a customer success manager, try and work with them to get enrolled, or, talk with someone after this meeting. I'm not sure of the status of the Access Gateway beta at this point, but to Krish's point here, I equally encourage everyone to participate in the beta programs, because that gives you direct access to the product managers who are building out that product, and they will talk to you. They'll kick off your experience with the beta manager, and they will survey you along the way. And if you want to be able to influence the future of the product, that is the best time to do it, because it's going to change during beta, but once it's in EA, the likelihood of change is later. Specific to the advanced server access, it is fully supported, and it's now fully integrated with Okta as well. And that was a large part of the announcement that was going on today. Is it's not only there, it's not only are you able to buy it directly through Okta itself, but it has direct integration so that you can create your users in Okta and have them automated provision through the gateway into your Linux and Windows servers.
So one thing to add to it is when you said a rollout, just to be careful, because beta programs is just beta. So it's not ready for rollout to production, and also it's not supported by really like support. So you can't really like make a support ticket or something saying like this beta program is not working or something. So it's just generally like the beta programs are always through beta programs, and then you have a proper channel to communicate your feedback and everything.
Hi, again, sorry. We have Azure AD Connect in place today. Again, we're new Okta customers. We've been using Azure AD Connect. Have you seen their customers that are existing Office 365 environments using Azure AD Connect? Are they transitioning to use Okta as their provisioning tool? And how often does that happen? I'm just wondering.
Sure. I mean, so well, one of the things is like in Okta, like today, like we support only like cloud-only provisioning. So basically, which means you should be fully cloud in Office 365. We don't support any hybrid provisioning today. It's because like we don't write back any data from Office 365. So if you are fully cloud, sure, you can definitely like take advantage of it. Because one of the capabilities, I mean, it's really good, easy, and also like I've seen customers where like they brought, like in terms of mergers and acquisition, where they're trying to bring it from multiple Active Directory instance, and they can do an easy transformation in Okta, and they can just bring it, get that one identity, right, basically like synced into. So definitely like, you know, I will recommend if you are fully cloud, yes.
Thanks. And one more question. Certification tests, apparently they have a bit of a reputation for being difficult. How do you, I assume you're all certified, how do you guys go about preparing for this?
I wrote some of the questions.
Can you give me the answers?
Yeah, Krish cheated because he wrote the questions, so he gets himself excused from taking the exams. No, they are definitely challenging. I think for us, you know, we're probably the worst people to ask on prep because we live using Okta. You know, we kind of bleed it day in, day out. And so that's kind of how we prepare, is working with everyone in the room here to actually implement the Okta. You know, I went through and took the sample test just to make sure that I wasn't, you know, going to be completely off the charts as far as, you know, being wrong about being able to get through it. They are tricky, and you know, the format is tricky. That's that for me, and that's why I encourage everyone to take the sample test. If you're going to do certified, be prepared for the format of the test. I think that's the hardest thing. Everyone's used to multiple choice or multiple, and that's, if anything threw me off, it was kind of understanding the format of the test itself.
He stole half of my question with the AD Connect replacement. Since we have a hybrid environment, should we be looking at decomming our on-prem presence, since 98% of stuff is in the cloud, and we could move everything else up there? And is that what other companies are doing, or do they just stay perpetually in the hybrid environment? And
I'll start. You know, at least from my experience, the ultimate goal for every company I work with is to be fully cloud and to not have hybrid. Usually, it's more of a pain point for them as to the only reason that it exists in hybrid is being able to move certain groups of people. And if they could move them quicker, they would. But that is definitely their end game, is to shut down the hybrid, shut down the AD Connect, get rid of ADFS if at all possible. Those are all huge wins for everyone we work with.
I thought that would be a very provocative question from this crew.
Hi, going back full circle to the first question that was asked about merging Okta tenants. We're kind of in the same boat. Just went through a merger, and my big, I guess, challenge, what I'm seeing is, how do you guys have a tool to migrate a SAML app from one tenant to the next tenant? Or do you just have to recreate it all over again, work with the vendors? That's the biggest challenge that I see with it. We already have org-to-org set up so that we can share apps between both companies, but we really want to have that one Okta tenant and share it between both companies. So
I can take that one. So we don't have anything productized in terms of something that product supports to take the configuration and slap it into another tenant. But in PS, we've developed some, Postman scripts and things like that that can read our apps endpoint, parse out all the configuration, and then it can post it into whatever new tenant you want to send that to. So if you would like access to that, I can share that with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Joe's point there, the biggest thing to recognize is all of that app configuration, or at least virtually all of it, is available through API endpoints. And so it's a programmable effort if you're willing to take the time to do it.
And that particular tool that you talked about to be able to potentially move from one tenant to another, I could see where that would actually be very useful in a highly controlled environment as well, because you can actually then have a continuous deployment to production without having to somebody rekey it. Is that something that's in consideration to move out of your hands and a strategic tool into more of a product or offering?
So that's been a long ask for all our customers. Even when you think about moving from preview to production, right? You do all your testing in preview, you're ready to go to prod, you have 50 apps. You don't want to configure everything manually. You would ideally like to just push everything and then make whatever, like swap out the URLs or things like that. But today, as of today, we don't have, like I said, any productized tool to do that. And we've encouraged, like when they do configuration porting from preview to production, you normally have one preview window open and one production. And we would like users to kind of be very cognizant of the changes they're making, because it is different, right? Your endpoints are different, things like that are different. So I can see where a productized thing would be helpful to get that initial base, and then you go and make the changes. We can certainly take the feedback back to product, but as of today, we don't have anything. It's mostly we use API endpoints to extract and slap back.
Yeah, and to Joe's point, it's definitely been a frequently asked question. Every time I kick off a customer meeting, they ask about how do we automate pushing from preview to production. So I don't necessarily think it's on the short-term roadmap, but I definitely know the product team is well aware of the demand out there for that. What I try talking to most customers about is, potentially thinking about Okta the same way you think about a SQL database, and how do you make changes to the database. You don't go into the database and just start altering tables, creating tables. You write scripts, and then you re-execute those scripts in each environment. Since those are all API endpoints that you could be doing with Okta, you could treat Okta in the exact same way. Porting that data, because, to Joe's point, is going to have different configurations. The URLs to your apps in production are going to be different than they are in staging. The certificates you're using are different between preview and production. There's not going to be a magic button, but you could potentially isolate that config and more streamline it through continuous integration processes.
Makes it even more valuable.
Totally agree.
Thank you. Hey, we're getting ready to go live with Okta, and we're on-prem, big 80, historical user, and we have a single forest, multiple domain, and we have regional OUs for all of our users. Do you find that? Okay, so sorry, we're shifting to HR as a master, Okta provisioning down to Active Directory. Do you find most people in that situation actually end up mapping OUs into Okta tenants, or do they kind of just flatten the AD structure? As part of that, create one Okta user OU and do all the management from Okta? How do people typically map Active Directory to Okta in an Okta mastered scenario?
So are you talking about HR to Okta down to AD?
Correct.
Okay. So my experience has been it really depends on, so you can, based on OUs, you can push users coming in from HR into Okta based on some attributes, say location or department. You can put them in different Okta groups, and you can configure those groups to write down to AD, to specific OUs. So what I've seen is clients are very excited about that, and they want to have several OUs, and then they want to, but it's sometimes the AD team wants to have control over that, right? So a lot of times they've gone with, okay, we're going to push it into 50 different OUs, but then as they come closer to go live, they're like, no, we want more control over this. And everybody goes into a single OU, and the AD team manages it from there. So that's been my experience. What about you guys?
I think like one of the key considerations you need to think about is like, how much of processing you want to make in the cloud, right? Versus on-prem. So because like it's always like people tend to, one of the things, this is like also like key thing, like whenever I go to an architecture workshop or something, customer will ask me like, okay, I have today this process. Can we do the same thing in Okta? Like, so that's first of all like has to change. So old process are old processes. So you need to first of all like modernize those processes. If you have 50 OUs, definitely don't go with 50 OUs. Just think whether it's necessary. Maybe in the olden days it was created for a reason. Do you really require that right now? I don't know. So that's the question I would ask, right? So how does that? So I want to make it everything simple, and that's what like Okta makes your life simple. So obviously, like we just want to you also like change. Adopt the change. So change your OU structure, make it like pretty minimal, so that like we can do more automation in Okta side, so that like Okta can give you that full feature set.
Right, thank you. And just to expand, we have 300 OUs currently.
Yeah, sure.
And one of the problems is, HR, we're migrating to HR to Okta to AD, but we have 30,000 existing users in AD, and they don't all align with the information that's in HR. So porting those existing users up into Okta has proven quite cumbersome for us. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Definitely, like you need to think about also like we're getting in a lot of new features like inline hooks and everything. You guys also need to consider like those things when you architect a solution. Think always like for example like group rules. People start writing like dynamic rules in Okta. Good, but if you have like going to have like 1,000 group rules, is it scalable? I don't know. So that's really like a question you need to ask. So whether I want to process this many rules, I want to process in the cloud, those kind of things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi there. We're actually a new Okta customer, and we're just getting ready to do our deployment now. We have probably the complete opposite to the previous use case, where we are a 100% remote, 100% cloud company. So we have an entirely remote workforce. We are very, very heavy users of cloud applications. I think in our application identification, we're easily over 100 applications in various spaces. I guess the question that I wanted to ask you was, from your experience, one of the biggest challenges that we're identifying is having a remote workforce, getting that user adoption of Okta, taking them away from their previous habits. I won't call them bad habits, I'll just call them habits. And also noting, just as a general question, are there any particular cloud applications that are risk or danger factors that need to be considered when doing that sort of application migration from static or using sort of Google Auth type things to moving it towards Okta?
So yeah, I have a question.
I'll just hand it over to you, Dave.
So what are you really kind of looking for in that scenario? Are you just kind of looking at it from a user experience standpoint that users are migrating or used to using, let's say, going directly to the service provider, and now they're coming in through the Okta dashboard, like that user experience change, or is it something different?
Okay, we are currently using Google Auth. We also have the 1Password. So we are kind of trying to, as he said, we're new customers. So we're trying to kind of close down on everything and kind of go through Okta to make it simple for the people ops guys to kind of manage the remote workforce.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we just want to know how can we do it better? What would be the first phase to start off with?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually very common. We do see it in all our engagements as customers are migrating to Okta. There's always going to be that education and training component to this. So we do have a toolkit that we publish. It's on our support site that you can leverage. It has kind of the Okta onboarding elements to it. So emails that you can send out, posters, presentations you can do, demos. You want to kind of share that with your user base early on and say, here's something that's being introduced. here's how your workflow changes from today to Okta, and if you have MFA and such, here's how you enroll for it. If you can't use such and such factor, here's some fallback options. So once you kind of have that, and the idea, then we really built out this toolkit and this collateral based on the feedback we get from customers. So a lot of customers use that, and they'll repurpose it. It's available to you like in the raw format, so you can change things around, put your branding in there. But highly recommend it. That's going to kind of ease your whole entire journey over to Okta. If you're seeing that like be a problem, what you can do is just roll out Okta on a per app basis. So you're kind of releasing to smaller populations, learn from the challenges they're looking at, and then just tweak your messaging so it's a little bit smoother moving forward.
Yeah, so just to add on to that, the communication is key. Exactly what the Twilio CEO was talking about today with communication. The sooner, the earlier, the often, the more frequent, this is coming, your life's about to change, the better. So I encourage that all the time whenever I kick off a workshop, get those key people who are responsible for communications involved, engaged, and participating in the meetings with us, so we can better, aid in that process. And then also think about that from the experience standpoint as you're planning your rollout. As Cam was mentioning, I'd be thinking about trying to start with your high-value apps, the ones that they use the most, and potentially the ones that you most are looking to secure in a better practice. Your opening comments there about being remote workers, that's our life. We're remote workers. We, are never in the office, well, rarely in the office, I should say. I was in there yesterday, but and we use Okta, of course, ourselves. So it can be an awesome experience from that standpoint. Similar to you, Okta has no Active Directory. When I talk to the customers about this, they look at me like, "Wow, that's an option." But when Todd's up there saying we were born in the cloud, he means it, and we live it. So.
I have another comment to add. A lot of my customers, like communications is key, right? They get their communication team on board. Like once we've tested out everything in preview, they're so particular. They screenshot everything, what's going to be the user experience. Say you're cutting over Office 365, the single sign-on changes from ADFS to Okta. In a desktop app, this is what it's going to look like. Kind of get those screenshots and kind of give that message to your users as early as you can, right? So that's a good takeaway there. Yeah.
Okay, let's pull that communication theme. Say it's a month before you go live, and you're meeting with the CEO, CFO, CIO, and CISA. Based on all your experience, what would you say to them for a definition of success? And the number 2, Krish, I love the bow tie.
I love that he had to check to see if he had it on.
Well, I thought actually, I don't even know they would put that photo. So, I thought they would pick up me from Slack or something, but they picked me up somewhere else. So.
Social media?
It's the best shot.
Yeah. But they missed the martini though. Okay, so do you want to take the question? Or?
So yeah, can you, so if I understood correctly, you said, how would you define success to the leadership? Was that your question?
Yeah, especially when you're a month out the project. You got a month.
So I will say, success varies by miles, right? And it's a little bit tricky for me to answer because it depends on the project. I don't, without a little bit more information, if this is, trying to roll out workforce or customer identity, a lot of times from our standpoint, how you define success is really how we engage with you, and it's the first thing I want to understand. What are the goals and objectives you're trying to achieve? So if you're bringing out workforce identity, if you're trying to tighten up security, you're trying to get rid of bad practices, you're trying to get rid of help desk calls, reducing friction, increasing positivity and experience and things like that. Those are the types of things that I'd be looking for specifically, and if I were having conversations with your C-level associates, that's the kind of level of discussion I'd be having of those types of usage of Okta and what it's going to bring to you, right? Is it a cost savings because you're going to get rid of SiteMinder? a help desk reduction cost, increased security, meet compliance requirements, things like that.
Yep, always goes back to the compelling factor for why you brought Okta in the first place. So yeah, exactly what Dave said. Like if it's security driven, it will be something your CISO will drive. If it's user experience driven, probably it's coming from your IT or your marketing teams. And then you want to trace that back. So if it's password resets are taking a lot of time and support desk is always busy with those and there's a cost associated with it, we want to bring that down. Your success metrics are how many people are doing password resets with Okta and tracing that and saying, my goal is to have 50% of my user population to use this over the next 3 months, next year, and then just tracking that.
So yeah, one of the things is like I would always say to CEO is like, so you need to think about a longer term. So basically like how are you going to do this? Like it's not going to happen over the night, right? So obviously like people think like I got Okta now today, I want to just save money. So like I just want to like migrate off probably like rip off AD. So I'm just saying like you need to really like think about like what is that milestone? Because always the CEO or CIO is looking for that roadmap, like long looking roadmap. What is that in 3 years? What I want to be, right? So what is Okta going to do for us? So where we can replace things with Okta and how Okta can help. So that's probably the roadmap is one of the key things to even success.
I think it's rare that I ever get to speak on these things, but I would say one of the biggest lessons I ever learned, excuse me, as a PM was, let me back that up first. I'd say you look to what was the rationale for budget allocation initially, and the success criteria is hidden in there somewhere. The most embarrassing question I was ever asked was, while we were celebrating a successful implementation was, I know I'm different, am I any better? And I couldn't answer that question. And it leads back to your question. I didn't know what the success criteria was. I was too young as a PM, but I would hang the hat on the program or the project manager to go back to budget allocation, look why funds were, why it was funded, why the purchase was funded in the first place, and in there lies the success criteria. And then all the way through your roadmap, that changes as you get more and more educated.
And so, this is probably not applicable to all Okta deployments, but where PS is engaged for larger customers, we do have BVA team that will do a analysis of why they're bringing Okta in, and that's get communicated to everyone who's working on the project, PS, CSMs. So we do track it to say, yeah, that's the customer's goal. This is why they're bringing the Okta, and here's their pain points. Let's make sure we address them, and then once PS deploys and customers live, your CSM will track that and follow up with you and make sure you're getting traction.
I'm just wondering if there's a good way to get on-premise agent serving multiple tenants, or a good way to get multiple on-premise agents running on the same server, each serving different tenants.
So when you say like on-premise agents, defines like on-premise provisioning agent?
Yeah, on-premise provisioning agent.
Okay, so on-premise provisioning agents, like so per tenant, obviously we want to deploy multiple things because it's going to take up a lot of loads, right? So basically like when you, and also like Okta natively does the load balancer as well for that. So all you got to do is just like install the agents in a couple of places and hook up it to one Okta tenant.
But is there a way to get it to serve multiple Okta tenants?
Yes.
In a
the same agent.
The same agent serving a number of tenants?
No, because I think when we install the agent, we're specifically saying, I want to connect this agent to this Okta instance.
That's what we've been doing, and we've been hacking the registry to move stuff out of the way before installing another agent to run on the same host, serving a different tenant. But it seems very hackish, so I'm just wondering if there's a better way, more wholesome way to do it.
Well, it's I don't know if it's hackish or something, because like it does right now, like when we started the on-prem provisioning agent journey, like we did not even have SSL support to it. So we just had like probably on-prem provisioning agent. Today we inbuilt like SSL support to it. So you need to basically like have secure socket layer even to install the agent. So some of these things is like, is probably like good thing, right?
Yep.
And obviously like we are PS, we always want to hack something out.
On that note, we're running out of time. I think well, we're running out of time. It's up to you guys. You want to have one more question? before we break? Anything burning?
I did not hear any questions on MFA or customer identity. I mean that's why I have Dave here for.
Thanks, Krish.
All right, well, thanks, you guys. I appreciate taking all the time. I love that I didn't have to do much here.